welcome back to My Unsolicited Advice. This is a little something new that we're doing here. Obviously, you can see there's a camera, there's video. I thought that I need to be one with the times if I'm going to bring back this podcast. And so why not make it a video podcast? I am really excited for so many reasons, but with this specifically, I, as most of you know, have been talking about this podcast, well, for the past 6 years, a little like under the radar. It's not like a public thing that I share with everyone, but I'm at the point in my life where why wouldn't I pursue this if it's something that I want to pursue and I've been talking about for so long? It's something that genuinely brings me joy. So here we are. If you're seeing this, when you're seeing this, and currently as I'm recording this, I have officially left my 9-to-5, and that was scary and exciting. I don't want to project this from the rooftops as something that I'm bragging about or super duper proud of in the sense of I don't have a job. It got to the point where I knew that it was what was best for me and my happiness, and so I had to do what I had to do, thus giving me the time and the energy to focus on the things that do make me happy, this podcast being one of them. While this doesn't obviously bring me income, could one day. I don't know. You don't know unless you try. I obviously have a plan career-wise, of course, which I'll get into, but I wanted to first just talk about what I'm doing here, why I'm doing this, and kind of give you a little recap on what is going on in my life in the past year or so. I actually was looking back at my podcast and the episodes that I've posted, and when I started this podcast back in 2019, I've posted 1 to 2 episodes a year ever since, which obviously is nothing, but it's really funny to just look back at them because where was I in life at those times? But I did notice that I didn't post at all in 2024, which kind of makes me sad because I had recorded a few episodes and also talked about it so much, but I just never felt like I was in the right headspace or felt confident enough, I guess, to post. And so that was a little sad to realize, but 2025 is the year that I've said it once, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to take it seriously and I'm going to do it. I've actually talked about it with a lot of people, and I have people who are willing to join me, and I think that's really exciting. And I don't want it to just be me. A solo episode is fun, totally, but genuinely no one needs to listen to me talk for an hour, which on that note, this episode and any solo episode moving forward, I've decided I'm going to make them bite-sized episodes. So just 30 minutes, something easy and consumable. And that way, no one has to listen to me talk for an hour. No one needs that. So with my bite-sized episodes, I just figured I would take 30 minutes to talk about whatever it is that I want to talk about, but it just doesn't have to be that long. Because in the past, any episodes that's been posted that was a solo or just other ones that I have recorded and never posted, just listening back to them, I'm girl, you talk a lot, which duh, hence me even having this in the first place. And if you know me, you know that I just love to yap. Yeah, I just figured no one needs longer than 30 minutes with me. And also there's a visual aspect to it now, so just it's long. This is a trial and error. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I do think with the guest, it'll be really fun. Anyways, into what I want to talk about and kind of what's been going on in my life. I honestly just want to do a full rebrand of this podcast. Not to be the most annoying person ever. Still going to call it My Unsolicited Advice because that's exactly that's what it started as. It's what it's going to stay as. I just think aesthetically wise, it could use a little refresh. Who I was when I started this and who I am now, we're not the same. There's been a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of things that I would like to do differently. So yeah, that's my plan. Now you guys know. Now into my life and what's been going on. I, like I said, left my job, and ultimately I want to say, I don't want to give all the details of the inner workings of my brain, obviously, especially because this is going to the internet where literally anyone and everyone can watch it. And I am not in the business of I am in the business of sharing what's going on inside my brain, but like there's no ill feelings or anything bad that happened to make me do that. It was all like, it was a me. Like it was kind of like it's me, not you situation. Like I really enjoyed my time at my job and I gained so much knowledge and experience and relationships and just so many amazing, great things from that job that I'm entirely eternally grateful for and wouldn't be where I am today without that. Give credit where credit's due. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I just got to a point where I felt like I was turning into someone who I wasn't. And I like have always said since I was little, and my family can attest to this, like I always like pranced around being like, I'm never gonna work a desk job, you're never gonna catch me at a 9-to-5, like I'm gonna do something that's out of the box, like I'm gonna do something that's different. And for a long time, like I also wanted to be a vet, so like that was kind of that path. And then when I went to college, I was like, well, I'm not going to go to business school because I don't want to do business. Like I don't want to do anything that has to do with corporate life. And then I naturally landed in a like career that was essentially that, but also not many people can get away with not having a traditional 9-to-5. I also for the longest time thought I was going to be an influencer, as in like obviously I started this podcast in 2019. I started posting YouTube videos when I was 14. Like I post on TikTok. Like I do the social media thing. It just like isn't, I'm not an influencer. And I'm also not sitting here claiming to be one. On that note, I did record another episode prior to this one last month and was going to post it first, but didn't love that it would be the first episode back. So which is why I'm recording this one. That one will see the light of day, just not yet. It was pre-recorded. So like, take that knowledge as you need it. But I kind of talk about that a little bit in that episode as well. But like, I'm not sitting here saying like I want to be an influencer because I don't. Well, I would, but like, I'm not on this journey of like, that's what I want to do. Like that, I get it. So many people are like that. And I'm never going to sit here and talk poorly about it because that literally was what my job consisted around. And I spoke about this in the other episode I recorded. So I don't want to like repeat it, but I just want to say like, I put myself out there. Like I put myself on the internet. Like this is something that I enjoy doing. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Anyways, that was unnecessary. But when it comes to my job, I just like got to the point where I just was like, I'm like not happy. And I just was turning into someone that I didn't recognize anymore. And I think the hardest thing you have to do is never going to feel like it's happening at the right time. And you just need to know what you're doing is the right decision, even if not a single person around you understands or agrees. And that wasn't really my case. I had a lot of people understanding, just a lot of people also being like, what are you doing? Like you don't have something lined up. But I knew ultimately that like if I was going to make the move, I had to do it when it felt right. Hence, this episode is going to be around the power of listening to your gut and following your intuition. I just wanted to talk about that because that is something that I like to claim I'm really good at it. Like I can listen to my gut and I follow my intuition as best as I think I can. Like honestly, like my head and my heart, I talk about this in therapy, are like not always on the same page, which I don't think a lot of people's are. I would love for my head and my heart to be on the same page at all times, but it's not that easy. But honestly, when I listen to, the thing I listen to the most is my gut. Like my gut, I trust it so much. My instincts of like, this is a right decision, this is a wrong decision, like this is what you need to do, this is what you should do. Like, I mean, the whole should thing is like a whole nother thing. But I knew in my gut that stepping away and taking the scary step to follow something that I've been thinking about for so long, even though it was like not a set plan and it wasn't a guaranteed salary right away, like I just knew this has been in my head for years and I'm taking it seriously for the first time. I think it's something I need to actively do. And so I got to the point where I was like, I in theory know it's totally possible to have a full-time job and also pursue something on the side, 100%. But I wasn't in the right headspace or heart space. Like my head and my heart just like weren't where they needed to be in order for either of those scenarios to be successful. I wasn't going to feel good doing my job and I wasn't going to be able to put my whole heart into what I wanted to do on the side, which now I'm going to make, like now I'm putting my whole energy into. Leaving a job when there is so much unknown is quite possibly one of the scariest things I've done. But also, like, I've done a lot of really risky, scary things in life, and they've worked out for me. Biggest thing, like my biggest example when I tell anyone about anything that I do is the fact that I moved to LA in the middle of a pandemic with no job lined up and one friend. Like, I did that. That was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I didn't have like a ton of support behind me. Like, I had support, but like everyone was like, this is a crazy thing you're doing. And I was like, I know. Like, I know. I'm very aware of my spontaneous, sometimes risky, not always well thought out plans that I pursue. But like, in the end, they all work out. Like, I am so grateful for that. And whenever I would tell anyone like, oh yeah, like I moved to LA during the pandemic, no job, one friend, whatever, everyone's like, that's crazy. Like, you did that. And I was like, no, you're right. I did that. Like, I have to remind myself that that was something that I did and it all worked out for me. Like, this summer is going to be 5 years in LA, which is insane that I've made it 5 years and I am still not ready to leave, which I think says a lot. And the fact that I did that was just like major. Like, how cool is that? I worked in retail for a year, which was totally fine, but that's how I made a ton of my friends. Some of my closest friends to this day I made through that job. I then got into the industry that I thought I wanted to be in, worked at it for 2 years, decided it wasn't my dream job, then went to another job, which again, great experience, probably wasn't the dream job. And now I'm here and I have, excuse my language, a fuck ton of friends, a great network. I'm a busy person. I travel, I get to do cool things, I meet cool people, I get to, like, and I'm not sitting here, like, I'm sitting here coming from a place of gratitude, not from a place of bragging. Obviously, if you know me, you know I'm not like that, but like, I have to sit here and remind myself that like one of the hardest and scariest decisions that I've ever made turned into one of the best decisions I ever made because it brought me here to this moment right now. And one of the major driving factors of that decision that I made back in 2020 was that in my gut, since I was a kid, knew I wanted to live in LA. I don't know what it was, but I told my parents literally since the first time I came to LA, I think I was 6 or 7. We came to visit my dad's friend who lived here. Immediately was like, I'm going to live here one day. And it was in my head for the rest of my childhood that I was eventually going to live in LA. I just knew that it was going to happen. When it came to colleges, I would have loved to go to school in California, but simply like expensive. You have to be super duper smart, and school was not my strong suit. And it was really far from home. I didn't know anyone that lived here. So then naturally I ended up in Arizona, which was like close enough. And it was the best decision ever. I'm so grateful I did that as well. When COVID happened, I knew in my heart of hearts, like, if you go back to Chicago, kiss your dreams of living in California goodbye, which I know is so dramatic and not necessarily true. But in my head, it was now or never. Because COVID was unprecedented, unpredictable. What was going to happen? Like, where, like, if I took an airplane to Chicago, would I ever be able to take an airplane to LA again? Like, there was so much. And I was already in Arizona, and I got a car for graduation. And I was like, I should just pack up my things and go. And so that's what I did. And it was obviously sad. Like, I'm moving away even further from home. And like, I love my family and I love Chicago and I love everyone that's there. And I occasionally have FOMO of missing out on the people who are in the Midwest, but I also have friends and family that live everywhere. Like, to be able to say that I know people in so many places in the country and also the world. Like, I have friends living abroad right now. Like, how cool is that I can say that I know people in so many different places. And I also, like, a little piece of my heart is in multiple cities. Like, I just feel so eternally grateful. And like, all circling back to listening to your gut and following your intuition, because if I didn't do that, like, where would I be today? And that doesn't mean that my life wouldn't look as good. There's the fig tree theory, which I believe was created by Cynthia Platt in the Bell Jar. And every person, also using another example of the fig tree theory, it's also like the Marvel universe, like the multiverse. Like, there are so many different versions of ourselves out there. There's so many different like avenues and roads and opportunities. And it's also like the butterfly effect. Like any small thing that happens dictates what the next thing is going to happen. And everything you do matters, and but also nothing matters. Like there's just so much, like, I don't know. I talk myself in circle about this every single day, but I also like shamelessly will admit, like, I'm an astrology girly. Like, I don't know everything about everything, but like when I get tarot card readings on TikTok, I absolutely watch them and listen to them as if they're speaking to me directly. I read my horoscope. I learn all the things there is to know. Like, I believe the stars, like everything that's going on up there, like my life was written in the stars. And it's proven correct a lot. Like, I am actively reading things or seeing things where I'm like, they're talking about me, right? Like, they're talking about me. Anyways, I just think that making that decision to leave my job, like, truly, like, sitting here and thinking about it and reflecting on it, which is what I've done for the past few days, like, I feel so proud of myself and confident that this will be one of the best decisions I've made for myself. It's not going to be easy, for sure. There's going to be a ton of roadblocks. Like, this is not going to be an easy process. And I'm sure that it's going to reach a point where I am going to say, like, was this the right decision? And I have made multiple, like, videos on my phone or written down in my journal multiple times. Like, don't forget the feeling you felt when you left. And don't forget, like, how you felt when you were making this decision. Like, just remember those feelings to, like, keep you on the surface, and everything will be okay. And I just have to say, like, any hard decision you're ever going to have to make in life, like, there's never going to be a right time to do it. Like, never. So whenever you feel like something is right, and also let me say, this was not an impulsive decision. This was well thought out for months. I thought about this. Was it maybe minorly unprepared? Perhaps, but like, only in the sense that I didn't have an immediate job lined up after, but that, like, wasn't my goal. I didn't want that. Like, that wasn't the purpose. Like, I wanted to be able to take a breath and recollect myself and be like, what is the thing that's going to make me happy? How am I going to feel fulfilled in my day-to-day life and do a job that makes me feel proud of what I'm doing every single day? And that doesn't mean that what I was doing before wasn't doing that, but there was days where I just was like, I feel like a shell of a human, and I don't ever want to feel that way. I am a very emotional, empathetic, wear your heart on your sleeve kind of person. And to be feeling so drained, I just was like, I don't recognize myself, and I'm scared for what the future holds if this is the life that I'm going to continue living. And yes, that sounds a little bit dramatic, and it is, but I just couldn't. I had to listen to my heart. I had to listen to my gut. I had to follow it, and that's what I did. And so naturally, to go into what's next for me, for those of you who are so curious on the edge of your seat, my intuition that I've been thinking about and been feeling for truthfully years, but like actually listening months, and have been talking about it a lot with my therapist, is I've always said that, like, and saying this out loud to a anonymous amount of people, it does, like, sound a little crazy, but I've always thought and felt like I had a bigger purpose in this world than to just do my day-to-day and mind my business. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but, like, I also started a podcast when I was a senior in college with literally no one that cared to listen, with no platform, for no reason, simply because I just was like, I feel like I have things that need to be said out loud for people to listen to. Like, what made me think that I had any right to do that? Why did I think that I was qualified to do that? Why do I feel like I need to post myself on the internet? Like, what value do I bring to people? And that was something that has eaten at me a lot, especially with this podcast, is the why do I think that I can do this? Why am I qualified? Why should anyone listen? Why would anyone listen? In my life, for those of you who know me personally, I'm like the therapist of the friend group. When someone needs advice or someone to talk to, like, I'm a very good listener. I'm also a very good advice giver. Like, It's just naturally what it is. I don't know. Like I didn't choose that. It chose me. I don't want to go back to school and be a therapist. I do not want to do that. That's not really something that feels right to me. I'm not drawn to that, but I do ultimately feel like I want to help people, and I feel like there's something bigger within me that I can accomplish, and that to not sound crazy, like make the world a better place. Like I've always had something in me that I just felt like there was something I could do to make a difference. Like I had a huge environmentalist era of my life when I was in college, as like no single-use plastic, literally carried a like reusable metal straw with me everywhere, like just all the things. And I'm actively still trying to do that. It's just like a little less now. I stopped eating meat for 4 years, which was like majorly for the environment, but also for animals and like all the things. Like actually last month was 5 years, but I did kind of break it. Anyways, not important. I just like always in me felt like I could be the difference. And then there's like the people who are like, but you're just one person. It's not going to matter. But that's literally like the bystander effect. Like, what do you mean it's not going to matter? If I'm not making a difference, if I'm not trying to make a difference, then no difference is going to be made. Nothing's going to change if nothing changes, you know? So I have always felt like there was something bigger. There was a bigger calling, something that I could do to help. And while this isn't going to be the answer to every problem ever, I have thought about it and decided that I'm going to get my life coach certification. Of course, that's something that's really like unknown to a lot of people. It's pretty unregulated. It's not going to change the world. I'm not going to change the world. I could, but not with this one step. But it's ultimately someone who guides and coaches someone through reaching their goals, and is essentially just there to hold your hand and show you the way, and help you pave the path to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. And obviously there's so much more to it, and if anyone is curious more about it, simply please Google it, or like you could ask me directly. I just don't want to make this episode all about like what is it. Maybe I'll do that down the line when I'm like actually certified. I think that that's the right move for me right now, and it's going to take some time, and I've found my program that I'm going to do, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to have to do like, side gig, oddball jobs for a little bit, but I was willing to sacrifice my lifestyle and salary to pursue my goals and dreams and things that felt right for me. And I think that was like, when I had that thought of like, I would sacrifice my social life to pursue this. And if you know me, I love my social life. That's like the thing that keeps me afloat. So when I thought that, I was like, all right, this is a move that I think I need to make. If I'm telling myself that I'm willing to no longer go to dinner, go out with my friends, do all my weekend activities, then like, yeah, I got to listen to this. Again, you might not understand it. You might think it's risky. You might think it's reckless. You might think it wasn't thought out. It's not your life. It's mine. And that's the fun of it. I'm kind of approaching the end of my bite-size episode, but there was a quote that I found, which like, it's not profound, but I saw it on Pinterest and now I made it my wallpaper. But feel the fear and do it anyway. I also discovered a video on TikTok that kind of was aligned with that. Because doing things that are scary is like it's really scary. Like when you feel fear, it stops you from doing things, which is what stopped me from doing so many things in my life. It's just I'm scared of like, what if it fails? What if I get made fun of? What if people have a perception of me? What if X, Y, and Z happens? Like the what ifs are just so like, oh my God, they're so annoying. If you feel fear about something, or you feel afraid or scared, or you're just like unsure what's going to happen, and you also feel excitement at the same time, literally do it anyways. Get rid of the fear, power through it, or just like feel it and just keep going. Because I saw a video on TikTok and someone was interviewing someone who I think was like in the spiritual realm, or yeah, I don't know what her job was, but like, and again, I told you, I'm like a spiritual astrology kind of person. I believe the universe has a plan. I'm that kind of person. For some of you, it might be God, religion. It's all the same, just a little different. She asked, how do you tell the difference between the inner voice in your head coming from your higher self or your ego? An ego is the voice in your head that it's basically the thing that's like pushing you down. You know, everyone knows what an ego is. Your ego is like not really your friend, but like helps you sometimes. Your higher self is obviously the voice in your head that's like, this is something that will lead you to the person you're meant to become. And her answer was, for example, if you're thinking about moving to a new city and that scares you, but that also excites you, there's excitement behind it, but it feels really scary, but you like know that like it is something you really want to do and you feel really excited to do it. That's coming from your higher self. That's your higher self being like, this is something that feels good to you. You should do it. If you're thinking about doing something and it scares you and like it just scares you and you like get really in your head about it and you're like, maybe this isn't the right decision. I don't know. It's really scary. And there's like not really any excitement behind it. That's most likely coming from your ego. Like, for example, me. Sometimes in my head, I'm like, should I move back to Chicago? My parents are probably freaking out right now. And it's a lot of like, well, my family's there. And I like, how, like, can I really live in LA forever? And like, what if my significant other that I haven't met yet is over there? Like all the things. But nothing about that sounds exciting to me. Like that's just like not, like it's more like the FOMO of missing out on my family. But it's not exciting. That feels like an ego thing. Like it would be my ego being like, you should move back to Chicago just because like your family's there and you should. But that doesn't sound that exciting to me, which is why I haven't done it. Living in LA and pursuing my life here, that's exciting. The fear of missing out of my family in Chicago, but the excitement of living in LA is what's keeping me in LA, if that makes any sense. That's basically my little spiel on that. That's like pretty much the gist of this episode. I didn't want it to be too long. I just like want you to know if you're someone who is going through something that either you just don't feel like you're doing the right thing. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to make any crazy decisions. I have to also give a little disclaimer that I am eternally grateful and in a place of privilege to where I can take the step that I'm taking without having something lined up. Like I have a good amount of savings that I can rely on if I need them. And I wasn't going to make this decision if I knew that I couldn't do that. So I have to make that disclaimer. I'm very, very, very fortunate for the situation that I'm in. I mean, I'm not just being bankrolled, just so everyone knows, but like I'm in a safe place in regards to my finances. However, if you're someone who is honestly feeling like what you're doing is just like not it, you don't feel fulfilled, you're feeling lost in life. Trust me, like I'm still sort of feeling lost in life, but like 3 months ago, I was like having a mental breakdown every single day, not sleeping through the night because I was like, something I'm doing is so wrong. It's so wrong and I have to change. Like nothing changes if nothing changes. Like I have to remind myself every single day of that. If you're someone feeling that, like just like don't be afraid to do it. Like if you have the means and you're in a situation to where you can. Also, let me remind you, because not a lot of people will remind you of this. It is incredibly normal not to know what you want to do with your life in your 20s, even in your 30s. It is incredibly normal to not have a 9-to-5 if that doesn't feel right for you. It is incredibly normal to go work a part-time job while you're figuring out something else. It is incredibly normal to feel lost. It is incredibly normal to feel confused. It is incredibly normal to jump jobs, to try new things, to figure out different avenues. It is incredibly normal to be unsure of what's next. Let me remind you, no one knows what they're doing. Everyone is faking it. No one knows. And that sounds crazy, but there should be some sort of comfort in that. Like, we're all literally just specks of dust floating on a rock in space. Like, nothing matters, but everything matters, you know? Someone said the other day, probably on TikTok, that they had a friend who went through life and acted as if everything mattered, but nothing mattered. And their life was like awesome. Whatever you do, as long as you feel good doing it, does not matter what other people around you think. It doesn't. It literally doesn't, because it's your life. It's not theirs. There's only one person in the world that relies on the life that you're living, and that's you. No one else's opinion matters. Obviously, we have responsibilities. Obviously, if you're a parent, you have children. Obviously, if you're, a caregiver, you have the people that you're responsible for. Obviously, we have responsibilities, but don't let people stop you from pursuing something that you want to pursue just because they're like, why would you do that? That's not smart. That's risky. That's scary. Why would you do that? Do you have something lined up? Like, you'll figure it out. Everything that's meant to be will be. And if you think that it's the right decision, it is. And I have to leave it at that. You also have to know that if something or someone is no longer serving you, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. You have to be selfish in order to be there for the people in your life. You can't be a good friend, daughter, sister, mother, aunt, etc., and show up for those around you if you can't show up for yourself first, because that's all that matters. And someone said that to me, and did that punch me in the gut. Like, I am someone who, have had moments of, spreading myself a little thin for those around me, putting other people before myself. I don't do that anymore after a lot of practice. If you're someone who shows up for those around you and you're a supportive person, you're there for your friends and you like to be there and you're shoulder to cry on, all the things. If you're that person for the people around you, but you're not that for yourself and you don't put yourself first, there's no longevity in being that person for other people if you're not putting yourself first. Because truthfully, you are the only person that matters to you. There are 100%. I care about every person in my life, but if you don't prioritize yourself, you'll never, ever be able to prioritize anything else. And with that, I think I have to leave you because it's the biggest message. If you're not someone who feels as confident in listening to your gut or your intuition, that's okay. I think maybe try and practice listening to it a little more, and then it'll come a little easier. Most of the decisions I've made in my life, or decisions I haven't made in my life, are due to my gut or my instincts being that's not right, or that is right. And obviously fear has stopped me from so many things, but there's no regrets. I can't look back at that. So you got to work through the fear of it all. I think I'm pretty proud of this episode that I just created for you. For me, actually. Half the time I record these episodes, it's for me, because I'm talking to myself, literally and figuratively. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see how this progresses. I'm excited for what my future holds. It's not going to be easy, but it is exciting, and I am glad that I was able to share with you guys. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. I've got socials. They're linked. You know where to find me. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And with that being said, this has been My Unsolicited Advice. Bye.